YouTube. My phone's just started pinging. Yeah, so a bit of hello to an old friend here. This is my Laney VC15, which was my main amp. It kind of took over from the Sovtech when I moved here. I just used the Sovtech as my main amp before, and I had that. The reason I bought, you can't even see it. The reason I bought that, well actually I got it in a trade and it wasn't the model I meant to get. The only other amp that I ever thought sounded as good as the Sovtech, this is going back a good few years, was my pal Jim had the Laney LC15. Yeah, that's a VC valve combo. LC it's a little bit more basic. I think it does a reverb on it, doesn't it? That's got like an effects loop and 2 channels. But this was just a wee PV and they weren't wee Laney, they weren't that expensive, made in England. It's a wee bit squarer and it's got a front panel as opposed to this one which has got a top panel and a more expensive looking handle. I think it's about twice the price of it. But I always really liked that, and then I got one that kind of came, somebody tried to sell it to Wayne for some reason, or I tried to bid on one. Wasn't that one, it was the LC one. And it was in Linlithgow. I think it was in Linlithgow. And I can't remember. It had been on for about 4 weeks and it was like 120 quid. I offered the guy 100. And he went, try 120. So I just... And then about 2 weeks later, Wayne's up here, this guy's got want to offload this amp. He's in somewhere called Linlithgow, and I was like, up here, and it wasn't the same amp, but it wasn't the same guy. Ended up getting it in a trade. I swapped it for a fretless bass and 50 quid or something like that. But so I've got it running here. I've just been, it's not a fair comparison. I've just been running it through that, which I deemed as totally acceptable and awesome, but it's like a £1,200 amp. So my wee Laney, and I'm even using the internal 10-inch speaker. It does have. One of the things that's different between that and the LC is that's got a Jensen speaker in it, so it should be inexpensive. It said it's made in Italy on the back. So just to see what it's actually going to sound like, I'm just going straight into it. This one doesn't have an on-off switch, a standby switch. It's just on. It's got a drive right off, and then it's got a bright button. It should be on. Should be warming up. Also got reverb on it. I'll turn the reverb off. Right. Oh, there's a tone. As I forgot, there's a master tone at the end. I wonder if here we go. We don't need the bright. Used to run it with the bright on. Bit of reverb, go for 2/3 reverb. Sorry, 1/3. A bit of transformer hum off it. Try the drive. Right. These were really crackly. I've taken to bits and hopefully switch cleaned them. I do still quite like it. I'm sitting here wondering if the main difference is the fact it's running on the internal speaker. So I always just have this plugged into the 3x12 cabinet below it, which would be a fairer representation because you're moving up to 12-inch speakers. This one, you don't have to unplug the other speaker. It's just got an external socket which just bypasses the internal speaker. So I'm just wondering how it sounds, but I always like the sound of this amp. Again, it's just, I know it's a stupid thing, but I prefer the knobs on the front. Well, none of these amps will, like the bass amp there, where you can actually just see the knobs. Okay, the three 12-inch Celestions is a bit more air pushing. That was bright on. That's enough of a good wee amp. So I'll now go for the putting it back into the rig the way it should be. That is a little bit concerning. It's a wee bit noisy. Just got like a transformer hum. I feel like I've touched something there. I remember doing this before. There's a hum on the clean channel, but not on the drive channel. So if I put the drive volume up a bit, put the drive level down, I should be able to use the drive. I think one of the things that would actually probably make it better, I've noticed this before, I think amps sound better there because they're kind of closer to my ear rather than me standing in front of it. But I mean, I don't know, I wasn't really comparing it to the Super. I don't think it sounds quite as good, but it's still got It's still got a thing. Do I prefer the reverb on that, or do I prefer the reverb on the pedal? So there you go, there's a digital reverb of some description and actual proper spring reverb. I just use the spring reverb just because it's real. I was going to say I think it sounds a little bit thinner, a bit more trebly than the orange does, but I bet you that's that bright switch better. I still quite like the bright button though, to be honest. Bit of brightness. Just what we need at this time of year, a dark January. I'm actually going to unplug the 4x12 the 3x12 cabinet again. Go back to its internal speaker. Would I get away with it? Just because it's a slightly different flavour when you've got there's a different frequencies it produces, I think. Yeah, I think more is more. It's not really lacking though. But I could get away with, if it wasn't for the loop pedal. Oh, maybe that was the time I should try the. I've heard of this. Like the loop pedal goes in the effects loop, which means that I don't need an external distortion pedal to get a drive sound, maybe. Although in saying that, when I'm using the clean channel on this one, it's got a buzz, like probably just a valve or something. Actually just maybe having it at the sort of level where I can, if I hit it hard, it distorts, but it's still pure clean, but humbucker and it's got girth. I want more reverb. We're getting a reverb junkie. I've actually used that in the studio with Crankenhouse and it worked fine on its own. But obviously I stuck it through having the external socket on the back just... I mean, the amp itself is definitely powerful enough. In saying that, I'm not really needing clean at volume. That one doesn't have any power reduction things on it now, does that one? The orange does, it's got like a half half modes, half the power amps and half the, so you can basically cut it in a quarter. I'm running it at 7 watts or something like that. So this is the full 15. Yes, I do really rate this wee amp. I've not actually been looking. I always quite fancied the cheaper one. It's one of those amps that occasionally you might see one for 50 quid. Probably not this one, but the other one, the LC. I've nearly bought it a few times for like 40, 50 quid because somebody obviously just thinks it's a wee laney. If it was a Marshall or a Fender, people would know, oh, that one might be worth money, but because it's just a laney, you know, it's only Tony Iommi used a laney. But it's the size of it. So it's a 10-inch speaker. There's the control panel, which I cleaned with switch cleaner. This is the first time I cleaned it. All the writing came off, hence why I bought the Dymo labeler, so I could see what it done. So we've got high and low input. So this, I should probably had this set up with the EMG pickups in it. I seem to remember having EMGs before and putting it into the low, and it made all the difference. It made the EMG sound normal. So clean volume, bright switch, gain or drive volume, and a switch to turn on the gain channel, bass, middle, treble, reverb, and that master tone thing, which was quite a useful thing. And then on the back it's got an effects loop and a foot switch, which I do have one. I remember buying a pure funky looking switch for this, which turns the reverb on and off and switches on the distortion channel. That's what I'm thinking. If I can run a loop pedal, or that wee brown loop pedal, in the effects loop of this, which means I could have like a clean backing and then have a distortion channel. In fact, I could probably fanny about with the gain for different amounts over a clean backing would be interesting. Yeah, because it would just record. It'd be interesting to see how it worked. And then I wouldn't need it. This and the corker just lock me in a room for 2 weeks. I'll just have a ball. And I just love the idea of having this as a. It's a shame it's not the 12-inch speaker, which is totally proper giggable, like the Supro is, or my Orange, which I was going to go and pick up, but I've actually put the Sovtech on top of it, and then put the Carlton on top of that, so that's heavy to get at. But I mean, it's just not that big. This is honestly a third to the size of the Orange or something like that. Okay, it's 15 watt instead of 30. It's got a smaller speaker, but I think you're getting away with. If you mic it up, stick it through a PA at a gig, it'd be fine. But it's just like it's only this deep. But as the Orange is like this, and then the Orange is this, and what's the other dimension? This. I think it's probably about the same width, but it's just so much bigger, and it's like an awkward one to carry. This is still right at the edge of a relatively easy to carry amp. It's still heavy, I'll give it that. I mean, it's a valve amp. Valve amps are never lightweight, but it's one of those where you don't have to hold it away out here like you have to with the Orange or God, that Marshall bass amp came with one handle in the middle of it, and it's so wide. You're having to carry it like that, so you're kind of. Whereas this one, it's within. It's got that take it along, and in fact, it's got the output the extension speaker thing on it. Means if you are playing a gig you can just run it. If the other band's got a cabinet, just use that. It sounds fine. I mean, I've totally used it in the studio with a 15-inch just to check it worked with Cranking House, and it was all right. And then I just ran it through the 4x12, and it was totally as in exactly what I wanted. You know, it was like yes, that's almost as good as the Softtech or the Orange or something like that. Basically, when you put it through a 4x12, it does the job. I don't need much. That's where, you know, an amp like that, to be honest, would totally do me. Even though it's an expensive one, but I mean, like, I've just been with like having lots of knobs on it and stuff. I mean, I do have a little bit of an ear for EQ, because I was sitting there, I was like, this has sounded funny. It's like that master tone control on the wee laney's quite a cool thing. It's just like a total overall. I think it comes after everything. It's just like it sounded wonky. It's very possibly just that. Rock on. So laney, whatever it is, and if you've got a laney LC 15 or 15R, I'll swap it for something. I quite fancy a shorter one. Although in saying that, I could just use that one. I think that one, I just feel it's a little bit the advanced one. I don't like having things I don't need. I think the LC one doesn't have 2 channels. I don't need 2 channels. I'm quite happy to have the clean channel on that seems to be quite noisy, so I'd imagine that's a preamp valve or dirt or something. I don't know. I'm not really that bored because I very rarely use the 2 channels on the amp unless this loop pedal thing's going to work. Rock on. And it's still Brown Guitar Week, Brown Bass Week, and I've so far done 2 amps. I mean, the reason I'm doing this with this amp is I don't know what to do with it. I don't need to have. I think I'm going to sell the PV one, but I'm going to have to bring the PV one through. Work it out. I could probably just A/B the 2 of them together and find out how much money. Because I know that those B amps weren't cheap. New. They weren't 1,200 quid. I think they were 400, maybe, something like that. But that was probably 20 years ago. So, don't know. Rock on. Like and subscribe.